Welcome to It Begins With Us, the podcast about domestic violence abuse. It is our mission to help anyone in a domestic violence situation. We started this podcast
as a safe space for survivors to tell their stories.
Completely confidential.
We can disguise your voice.
You can be off camera, and we're here to listen. Let's get started. Welcome back. We are on episode 10 today, and we have a very special guest.
Hi.
This is Mia. She's a really good friend of ours, a local photographer in town, and we love her.
Absolutely.
I've known Mia for about a year and a half, through mutual friends and photography.
And me being obsessed with banana and fruit.
And she loves my drinks, especially the banana. Yes. But we wanted to welcome her today to have her here on the podcast because she watches, our show, and she wants I had no idea that she related to us, that she had also been in a domestic violence relationship, in her first relationship. So we wanted to bring you on, and I'm so glad that you're on here to talk about it. Maybe, that it helps you heal in some way, because that's the feedback we've gotten from everybody that's been on. Welcome. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being part of my healing journey.
Yes. So, I know we started talking a little bit ago, what brought you to, what got you into that relationship? And I feel like you and I both relate in this sense where, it was our upbringing, horrible childhood that we had. We felt like we had to get out of there, and we just wanted somebody to love us.
Yeah. I think I desperately wanted anyone who will just take me, and love me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, my biological mom, she had Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
What is that? I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, so a lot of people heard of it with Gypsy Rose, that became really popular, and the Hulu show that was about Gypsy Rose's life. So it's a caregiver who hurts the person they're caregiving for attention. So it's usually a parent causing harm to the child. And
she did that to you?
To me. So the big Phoenix tattoo is actually a complete scar cover up. So I'm covered in surgery scars from here to here, chest, all the way down. And so I think I looked through medical records as an adult, and it was 30 something odd procedures. Wow. A lot of exploratory surgeries, tons of medication. All of these things. So the time I was 3 months old to the time I was 3 years old, I was constantly in the hospital and in doctor's offices. And my dad was a Marine. So he was on deployments. He was taking care.
He wasn't present.
Right.
Yeah.
She had kids prior to meeting him. So I was number 4. And then he got back from Kuwait as a deployment, and I was in foster care. And my rest of my siblings had been shipped out of state real fast to be at my grandparents' house. And they approached him and said, "Hey, we think this is what's going on. You're all looking at charges. How can you not be aware?" And so he had to prove that he wasn't present.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he actually won custody after the divorce of all 4 of us kids. And the 2 oldest weren't biologically his children. And I would love if that had been the end of the story, because when you're 3,
right.
You can survive, you can get therapy, you can...
Yeah.
No. Unfortunately, no. I think my dad was very religious and had maybe a type of woman that he wanted, but he quickly remarried, and she was our mom, But there's no way as a mom now of 5 kids that I would ever treat my children the way
You were treated.
we were treated. One, when being so young and going what I went through, I should have gotten help. That like time as a child is super crucial to like development and emotional understanding. So if you like think of ducks, like I never imprinted. So as an adult now, like I'm the outside friend. I'm not the person that people call first. I'm not anyone's best friend. I'm the outside person and everything. And that's how I've like spent my entire life. But then growing up, constantly hearing about what she did and like did to him and did to the family. Like I was always told, like, if you're sick, don't tell anyone because you're going to turn out just like her.
Wow.
Like I could never be sick. I could never take care of myself. So here I am as an adult, like finally learning to take care of myself and it being such a struggle to admit any type of weakness. But not only that, like my stepmom was mean, like really, really mean. I remember one time her like grabbing my sister by the hair and dragging her down the stairs. And she's like a bigger woman. Like I'm small, my sister's small, like biologically my sister and I are not gonna like be large people and she was not. And she like pinned her up and was like having her like by her throat on the wall. And my brother had just moved back in with us at the time and he like stepped in.
We have the same story. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean it was horrible. And I'm like standing there. I'm a person like I'm not fight or flight, I'm freeze, like in every situation. To this day.
That's where we don't relate. I'm fight or flight.
If I ever
One
have
or
to,
the
like,
other.
if I am ever being any kind of like confrontational, like it's taken everything in me to like get there. So I'm just like standing there. My brother's like stepping in, like saving her. And I remember my dad came home and we're sitting on like the front deck and we're telling him what happened. And he's quiet for a second and he looks at us and says, at the end of the day, you guys aren't my family.
Wow.
You will move out. You will have your own family. And the only relationship and person that matters is her.
My parents believe the same thing.
And
Which I think it...
to some extent,
Yes.
like you want someone...
but your children are your children.
Right.
Like, my husband didn't believe that. My ex-husband didn't believe that at all. And I was raised that way. And so, but I'm also protective of my kids. Like, my kids right now, they're important now. But he was just like, you could leave me today, whatever day you want. You know, like, my kids are going to be my blood. My family, like, my sisters and my mom are always going to be my blood. They're going to be always in my life. You could leave whenever you want. And me, I'm like, no, like me and you're going to be together for the rest of our lives. And the kids are going to move out, you know, one day. And so we have to stick together. But yeah,
Crazy.
but not to that extent, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is like you already had a wife
Right.
that was abusing your children. So much so that like the state came in and took us away. And yet here you are like in another instance choosing a woman who
Over your children.
And my brother was an adult like at the time. I think he was like in his so he's 10 years older than me. So if I was around 15 at the time, so he was 25 and he's like, Dad, this is what I witnessed. Like I had to step in and pull her off of
Did she have kids with your dad too?
she had 2
Okay.
and
Or did they get treated different?
100% had a different life than me.
Yeah.
100% had a different life, and they
like
will
that evil
fully
stepmom.
admit that. And that's what sucks, because like I am a stepmom, I am a bonus mom, and I'm like,
You'd never.
I would never.
Yeah.
is my bond with him slightly different? Yes, I'm going to fully admit that I am human.
But probably also because you're not with them all the time like you are with your kids. Yeah.
But we were with her all the time.
Yeah.
My biological mom did win visitation rights with us. And this is also where, like, if all of this happened, would you as a parent at all let your kids go back and visit that parent?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
So when I turned 15, we spent a month at my biological mom's house. And I spent a month at my grandparents' house in the summer. So any chance that she got and my dad got, we were shipped away. They wanted nothing to do with us, really. We were never allowed to stay homesick. I remember one time throwing up at school and her being so mad that she had to come and pick me up from school. And I'm like, and she was a stay-at-home mom. So it wasn't interrupting like a work schedule or anything like that. But yeah, we were definitely never the people chosen. So I think then as an adult, and even like, you know, reaching like 16 and discovering boys, I was like, who will love me?
Yeah. Like, you just want somebody to love you.
Yeah.
I even to this day struggle with that. Like, I just want somebody to love me. Literally. Like, that's all I want.
And it's hard to find like the correct love.
Yeah. But I feel like we seriously like relate so much that I had no idea.
I don't talk about it a lot. Like no one
like
knows.
You saying like your mom doing that. My dad did that to my brother because he was defending me because he wanted to sneak out at night and told me to sneak out with him. He fell asleep and I couldn't get him out and my boyfriend was outside waiting for us. So I left, got caught. My dad wanted to kill me. He was like, he threw my mattress and like flipped it over and was like tearing everything in my room. And he's like, you fucking whore. Like this, you know, like I don't want a whore in my house. And my brother knew, like he was like, I messed up. Like that she wouldn't be getting in trouble if it wasn't for me, you know? So he went in there, he's like, don't call her that. She's my sister and she didn't do anything wrong. And he like grabbed him by the neck and was like, if you're gonna defend that stupid whore, and pinned him up against the wall. And that's when I was like, oh, hell no. You did not just do that to my brother. So I grabbed my brother off and I told him, run. I didn't tell him to run away, and he ran away.
Not quite so literal.
Yeah. So I was 16. I grabbed my dad with my strength and I put him up against the wall. And my dad's 5'6" probably. He's just an inch taller than me, if that. If we're not the same height, yeah. I mean, but he's a bigger dude. And I pinned him up against the wall and I was like, leave my brother alone. But yeah, that's crazy that you saw like the same thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I would say like between like my stepmom and my sister, there was a lot of physical violence for sure. And I'm not the personality type
Yeah.
Yeah.
to step in. A lot of emotional abuse on my end.
Yeah.
I think the most physical she ever got with me, I remember being in like the fourth or fifth grade. And like any stepkid does, you know, you're not my mom. Totally normal thing. And she grabbed me, like threw me on a chair and then grabbed the closest thing she could, which was like a dog leash, and just went to town. And I like had a bruise on my thigh about that big. And then she picked me up from school and took me to my dad's work, which he was in charge of the armory. And I stood at attention and he chewed me out in front of all of his Marines. So like I learned very quickly, like, just don't say anything. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And even going back to Virginia, like this trip, there was something that happened, and my younger sister, which is, you know, their biological daughter, she looked at me and she said, say something. And I said, why? what's the point? Yeah. I would definitely say, like, for me, my journey didn't start, at 18, at 16. It started as a baby. Like, it was the second I was born. I think we talked about how, like, ducks imprint. Like, that's a well-known thing that, like, ducks hatch and they imprint on their mothers, and that humans go through the same experience. What emotions and bonding that babies experience is something that I didn't get to experience as a child. And it's just impacted how I handle any type of situation in life, sadly.
I think that's a very important thing to talk about, because we don't hear about that a lot. That I hadn't heard that way you just said, the imprinting. I think I had touched on it a little bit, but I didn't know that that's what it was called. I feel the same way, like, with my mother. I was ripped from her arms the second I was born because she had chicken pox. So she wasn't allowed to touch me. And I did end up getting chicken pox 2 weeks after I was born, even though she had no physical contact with me. But I feel like that had a lot to do with why she didn't love me. Not only that, but they also wanted a son when I was born. I'm their first kid, and they wanted a son. So, like, there was no love towards me when I was born. And to this day, I have no relationship with either one of my parents.
I just fully cut off my dad and stepmom. But
is that really hard for you right now?
It comes at, the death of a grandparent and them and a medical diagnosis. So it's like a lot all at once. Like,
but does it feel almost like a weight off your shoulders?
I think I can finally stop
looking for validation.
Looking for like 100%. That's like, this is going to be the time. This is going to be the time.
So I've been no contact for this month. It's 5 years with my parents. I see them very rarely. I just saw my mom maybe like last week, I think. I have like no emotional connection to them. But I think like even still to this day, even though I say I don't and I don't want to, I still feel like I need validation sometimes. Yeah. It's very little now compared to it was the first 2 years. Like the first 2 years were so hard. I would cry all the time out of nowhere because I'd see like other people like, oh, my mom. Or every time somebody posts on Facebook, like, I don't know what I'd do without my mom. And being like,
you never had
my
that.
mom's dead. Like my mom's alive and she's been dead to me, you know? And I think it's harder to grieve somebody that's still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it still happens. Like I opened my store 2 years ago and the whole time I kept looking like everybody in town knew that I was opening a store. Somebody told them. They live here. Yeah. Like I kept looking like they're going to come through those doors one of these, like anytime. And then I even like within the year, I was like, one of these days, you know? And it's been 2 years and now they go in because my brother's in there, but they go in when I'm not there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I still like, even though I say I don't want to look for validation from them, I think still like there's a little bit. Yeah. It's a lot less though. Right. So I just want to tell you, like, don't beat yourself up when you still, like, you have those moments of where it comes down, like, you just can't do it. You feel like you can't do it because I don't know how long, if that ever stops happening.
I think it's one of the benefits of not having fight or flight and just having freeze because for me to fully cut someone off, like, I'm done. Yeah. And I am pretty indifferent.
and I have that same, like, for me, it's like, I can love somebody so much and just boom, just out of nowhere, just cut them off completely. But in my head, still like with my parents, because they are my parents. Yeah. And maybe because of the way I grew up religiously, that might be why, but they're the only people that I, like, inside, I'm just like, if it could be different, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just like I've constantly heard growing up, like, you're not family, like, you don't matter. And seeing it in their actions constantly. How little I mattered in life. That it makes things really different. I think I care more about my dad than I do my stepmom. I think
Absolutely.
in my mind that's been a lost cause for a long
because
time.
she made it known.
She made it really known, physically and emotionally and everything. And for my dad, it was just like, at what point are you going to care? Like, you didn't care for my biological mom. You didn't care with my stepmom. Like, at what point are you going to say, I brought these children into the world, let me take care of them for once? It's always been about him and his relationships, or his relationship with them.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I can't picture that.
Right.
So you said when you lived with your biological mom, how long did you live with her, and what happened?
So, not long. So when I was born, my dad was in Iraq, the first Gulf. So the first time he ever saw me was actually on television with Tom Brokaw on a like big newscast, meet your daughter for the first time. So my biological mom, I actually was born here in Idaho, in Boise. She got to know the governor. She had all this attention as being a military wife with 3 kids at home and a new baby, and a lot of attention. And then he got back from serving and immediately we moved to North Carolina. And so she went from all of this attention to no one knew who she was. She wasn't around family. She wasn't around friends. She wasn't around anything. And all of a sudden I got sick. So I'm like 3 months old. And then I kept getting sick, and I kept getting sick, and different hospitals that I would need to go to, and, oh, we need to try her on this drug, and like, let's do an exploratory surgery to figure this out. And around the time that I was 3 years old, a doctor said, this really isn't making sense. Like, her demeanor, it's like something is off. When you just meet someone, you're like, it's not right about that person.
Yeah.
So he called around to other hospitals and started putting it all together. And so what she has it's technically a mental disease. It's called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And it's where a caregiver hurts the person that they're supposed to be taking care of. So it's oftentimes a parent or child type of situation. So
just like that show you saying.
Yeah. So there's I can't even remember what it's called, but it's about Gypsy Rose.
Gypsy Rose.
That made the disease well known. It's actually been relabeled now to like fictitious syndrome because it's just all fake.
Yeah.
Right.
You can have Munchausen by proxy, which is where you hurt yourself for attention. But then Munchausen by proxy is where you're hurting someone else. So yeah, I was immediately yanked from the hospital and put into foster care.
How long were you in foster care?
It would have been around a year.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of this is me like looking through court documents and medical records.
Right, because you don't remember.
Because I don't remember. My first memories are of foster care. I'm really lucky that I had good foster parents. I know that at one point they had told them like, hey, if we can adopt this little girl, we'd like to. My very first pictures are pictures that they took of me. So yeah, I don't have like baby pictures or a baby album, anything of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, my dad got back from Kuwait and I was in foster care, and my siblings were at my grandparents' house in Colorado, and we were in California at the time is where I went into the system. And they said, hey, this is what's going on. Like, did you have any part of this? So he was able to prove that he didn't have any part of it and that we would be safe in his care. And so he was granted custody of all 4 of us. My 2 oldest siblings weren't biologically like his children too.
So he came back. Did your mom go to jail? No.
So she had to get psychiatric help and wasn't supposed to have custody or visitation of us, which that later changed. But that was pretty much it.
And you were the 4th child. So 2 of them weren't your dad's, and then 2 of you guys were?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't know officially that my sister was biologically my dad's until within the past 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So he thought that like the 3 really weren't his.
Okay.
But yeah, my sister and I are 15 months apart in age. So we always grow up together. But yeah, so I was 3 when it all ended.
Okay. Well, that side.
That side. Yeah. So he quickly, like, as soon as he was really able to, like, he remarried to my stepmom. Like I said, I was in foster care at 3. And then I looked through my documentation and I was put into kindergarten at 4.
Wow.
But I had like stopped talking. I was behind on everything. But again, I think this kind of goes back to what I'll experience later in life is any chance that she could send us away.
Sure.
Because I needed therapy. I needed rehabilitation and I never got it.
Yeah. Wow. And then, but you ended up in the care of your dad and your stepmom.
Yeah.
And they had more kids.
They had 2.
Yeah. And then, but your stepmoms always didn't treat you well also?
I remember holidays being made to be special, vacations, but day-to-day life, I can't tell you hardly any good memories. I have good memories with my brother. I think he tried his best. He was 10 years older. And in so many ways did he provide a parental figure that we didn't have.
So your dad got custody of you, but the other 3 stayed with...
No, he got custody of all of us.
All of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't his.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got out of foster care at 3. I was put into kindergarten. My birthday's in October, so they like managed to like, she's gonna be turning 5, put into school at 4. And then like a year later, so I was 6, we got stationed in Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, wow.
So they're remarried. We get moved to a whole other country. And within a year's time frame, my 2 older siblings were kicked out of the house and sent back to the States.
Wow.
And like growing up, I heard it was because they were completely awful and they were misbehaving and all of this stuff. But now as an adult, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm looking at this timeline and you remarried, and within a year, she's kicked all of the kids that she can physically kick out of the house. And you just thought that was okay?
Yeah.
After everything we experienced, you thought that was okay. You didn't get us therapy. You didn't, we never talked about it.
Better. Yeah.
You just kicked them out.
Yeah.
And sent them to live with her.
With her. I thought they came back, as adults or to come live with other family. Wow.
That's horrible.
After all that she did to you.
So my brother was almost 17, around that. He would have been turning 17. And then my sister would have been 15 going on 16. And within a year's time frame, she was pregnant. He was addicted to drugs.
Oh, no.
And then they really wouldn't come back into our lives until about 10 years later. And so me and my sister, who were just 15 months apart, so I'm 6, she's 7, we were home with her, with my stepmom.
Wow. How long were you guys in Japan?
We lived in Japan for 3.5 years.
Wow.
Do you remember, like, what it was like there?
I do. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's a very tropical island. It's not at all what you think of. So Okinawa is an island off of mainland. So it's not quite the same as mainland Japan by any means. It's kind of a very like culture. The people of Okinawa, like they are descendant from like Korea and Hawaii, and
Right.
so it's a little bit different than mainland
Okay.
culture.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason I ask is, like, the language, did you have to learn a different
No.
language? Or?
So being in the military, like everything is on base.
Okay.
The need to really get off, like it's its own
Community.
community. So
Okay.
you have groceries, movie theaters, bowling alleys, all of that. And my stepmom really didn't want
To go.
to experience. Like here we are in this like beautiful other country, and she
Didn't want to go.
didn't want to go experience anything.
Okay.
So we didn't. We stayed at home a lot.
Wow. And she became very abusive.
Very abusive. To my sister, who was older, a lot more physical. But her and I's personalities are very different for being so close in age. Like she is a lot more fight in her. I am a lot more freeze. So I just take it. Like if you start yelling at me, I'm just going to sit there and I just kind of shut down and just take it.
Right.
Honestly. So that like affected things a lot on how
Yeah.
stuff happened. So yeah, we lived in Okinawa for 3.5 years, and then we moved back to California. And she's from California.
Okay.
So I think in a lot of ways, like that became her
Safe place.
safe place, and a lot of things like escalated. I remember getting sick at school and her picking me up and just screaming at me. And so I quickly learned, and this is something that I've had to only now at 30, almost 35, overcome, that like getting sick wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not okay, and it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like if you're sick, unless you're throwing up and dying, I don't want to hear it. I mean, that was a constant, like, unless you're dying, I don't want to hear it. Unless you're dying, I don't want to hear it. And if you are sick, you're going to turn into your mother. Like, oh, you're just getting attention. You're just going to turn into her. You need to be really careful about what you say and how you act, because you're going to turn into her. It's in your biology.
Wow.
You're going to turn into her. I mean, I was told that so much. Your whole family is crazy, so you need to be careful.
That stuff does so much damage to your own mental mind. Even probably now, it's still in the back of your head. Like if something happens, I'm going to be like my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I yell at my kids, I'm like, I'm just going to turn into my mom all the time. I think this last 2 years, I've been so much better about it. Like, no, I can discipline my kids and not be scared that they're going to hate me like I hate mine, that they're going to stop talking to me, or that I'm going to be this evil person to them. It's just discipline. It's okay.
Well, and there has to be discipline as a parent. Like,
Yeah.
as much as we want to be their friends all the time,
Right.
like that's not going to happen. I think one of the biggest differences is like we have to learn to also apologize to our kids
Yeah,
too,
absolutely.
because we're not always going to be perfect for sure.
Yeah.
But for them, it was, I provide for you, so get over it.
Right.
Right.
Like there was zero apology in anything. It didn't matter if she was hitting, if she was screaming, I don't ever remember once in my life there being any kind of apology for anything.
And your dad never defended you guys at all.
No, I remember being in, you said 4th or 5th grade, and like any kid, you're not my mom. She was telling me to do something, and it's probably the only time in my life
that you stood up for
that
yourself.
I stood up for myself, and you're not my mom. And she grabbed me, and I just remember being slammed on like the wooden, like 90s kitchen chair that we all had. And she grabbed the closest thing she could, and it was a dog leash, and just beat me. And I still went to school that day, and I had a giant bruise on my thigh. And she picked us up from school, and we were supposed to go to piano lessons because, you had to be perfect still. She dropped off my sister and said, Mia, you stay in the car. And she drove me to my dad's, and he was in charge of the armory on base. And I stood at attention, and as he chewed me out, because she was my mom. And that was always drilled, like, she is your mom. She is your mom. She is your mom. And like, yeah, I didn't have a great biological mom, but how she behaved, she was not a mom either.
Yeah. She was not loving at all.
No. No. Like, I cannot remember any amount of affection from her. And I remember like telling my dad like about that too. Like, and well, she just got burned so bad by your siblings because they were so bad. And you guys were such hard kids. Like, I constantly heard how we were such difficult kids and we didn't respect her. And I remember even talking to my aunt this past month while I was in Virginia, and she said, well, she did the best she can. And I am so sorry, but that's
not an excuse. No.
That's not doing the best you can.
There's a quote that I love every time I see it shared. It says, I was always told, I hope your kids turn out just like you, or something like that. So that way you can see how hard you were and how difficult.
Oh, I heard that all the time.
Yeah. And then like it ends with, I'm glad I have the kids that I do because they're so much like me, and I could never be that parent.
I found out how easy it is to love them or something. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. It makes me cry every time. Because my kids are, especially my oldest, she is like my spitting image. Absolutely. Like, she does everything the way I do. She is emotional. She is,
which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. And just like so kind, and she listens, and she is just so smart. Like, everything she does, I'm so proud of her. Every time like I get emails from school or people tell me things, and I'm like, that's like what they would say to my mom about me. I'm like, how could she not be proud of me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They still say it to her now. I know they do.
Yeah.
Because people come up to me and they're like, we saw your mom and we told her how proud we are of you. And I hope she knows. And I'm always like, thank you guys. But she's never going to see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I think they just have like rewritten the story in their mind so wrong.
In their own way. And I think that's what's so horrible, is that maybe your mom thinks that she did so good, but she won't ever say it. And she won't ever admit that she hurt you. And like, same with your both moms. Like, they're never going to give.
With other people, do they get mistaken for like being amazing people?
My dad, yes. And I do honestly feel like my dad is a good guy. He just...
He didn't know how to do he didn't know how to be a father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. His first priority was himself. And his relationship. My stepmom, I don't know. Most people can read her within seconds.
Yeah.
My service dog doesn't let her within 5 feet of me.
Wow.
Smart baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, this past time in Virginia, he was like, nope.
When people hear me talk about my parents or they ask questions and I tell them how they are and they're like, it's so hard to believe because they're such amazing people. And they are. They're really good people to other people, but they weren't good parents. And so that made me grow up, you know, to the day I turned 18. I left my house. My mom wouldn't let me work. They wouldn't let me work. I had to work with them. They have a taco truck that they've owned for 20 years. And they didn't pay me. In the beginning, like when I was 14, 15, like they would give me the tips. And I'd always have like all the shirts, you know, from Aeropostale or American Eagle. Like I owned every single one of them. I owned every...
Pop the collar too.
Yeah. Every color of etnies you can think of. And I mean, I had a good life that way. But when once I turned 16, they're like, oh, she bought a phone behind our back because I wasn't allowed to have a phone. And just like, she's going to start using this money for things, you know. And so they didn't allow me to have any money at all. So they would control everything. So by the time I was 18 and I had scholarships, I graduated the same week that I turned 18. So my birthday's in the end of May. So I was just waiting to turn 18 so I could go get a real job, you know, that paid me. Yeah. Because not only did I have this issue, but also I wasn't born here. I was illegal. I don't know what we call it, undocumented. I was undocumented. So I could attend college, but at a higher rate than permanent residents.
Right.
And so I remember at that time it was like $18,000 a semester compared to $3,000. And I had about $5,000 in scholarships. It didn't even cover one semester. Yeah. My goal was to go to college. Like that was my dream, to go to college. It wasn't going to happen with me not having any income. So the day I turned 18, I remember I had been trying so hard. I'm like, I don't want to leave my house and hate my parents and not talk to them, not have a relationship. Like, maybe they're right. Maybe I am rebellious. Maybe I am a bad kid. I'm just going to shut up and listen and do everything they say. I'm going to be a good kid. I'm going to be obedient because I was not obedient according to them. And I remember that day I turned 18 and I told my Mom, I needed to have a talk with you. Like, I just turned 18. I can go legally get a job. I didn't know how to drive. I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't even allowed to turn on the car. I wasn't allowed to know how to turn on the car. And I said, I need a job so I can earn money by end of August so I can start college. Or I can stay here and still work with you guys and you pay me a decent amount of money. I'm not asking for a lot, but I need to make enough money at least to make it through the first semester. And she goes, absolutely not. You live under my roof in my house and I feed you whenever you're hungry. You listen to my rules or get the fuck out. And she's like, I took care of you till the day you were 18, like I'm supposed to by law. You don't like it? Get out.
Wow.
She said that in front of my aunt. And my aunt was always like, that's her. She's my great aunt. So she's my mom's aunt, my grandma's sister. And she was living with us and she's like, how does a mother talk to her daughter that way? Mm-hmm. Like, say that she raised you, like, until the law says she's supposed to raise you. Right. Yeah. Like, she's like, if I had kids, because she never had kids. She was into her 60s. And she said, if I had kids, like, if they wanted to live with me till they died, they're allowed to live with me. Like, yeah. That's my responsibility as a parent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she said, Mija, like, if you need to pack your stuff, I'll help you pack your stuff. And I'll help you get out. Mm. And yeah, I stayed home. My mom was livid because she was trying to take me to go to work after school. And that's when I said, we need to have a talk. It's either you start paying me or I need to go find a job. Mm-hmm. And nope, she said, absolutely not. And so I said, okay, I can't go to work with you then.
Yeah.
And she was livid. So when she left, when she came back home, I wasn't home no more. I had been dating a guy for 1.5 years almost. He was my hero. He was everything to me because he knew everything. He was my best friend. Everything that would happen with my parents, he saved me. He bought me a phone, like this little tiny phone that I would hide inside my bra. Anytime I had an emergency, I'd call him. I remember even having a toothache. It got so infected. I was having a blood infection because my parents wouldn't take me to the doctor, to the dentist. And he finally had his parents call my parents, said, if you don't take her to the dentist, we're going to call CPS on you. So he was always like on the ball of saving me all the time. So I thought this guy was my savior. And I needed to get out, you know? I needed to leave my house because he was going to save my life. And that's where it began, you know, the domestic violence, because I was so prone to, like, what I have already gone through. I thought it was normal. Like, I went through a lot of physical abuse with my parents, my mom especially. There were so many times, like, I don't know how she didn't kill us, because she just would beat us till she couldn't anymore, till she had no more strength. She would have to, she had a belt that she would carry in a diaper bag. Even though she didn't have no more kids, like little ones, she would carry a diaper bag with her. And if we misbehaved in public, like, she would take us out to the bathroom or somewhere and just beat us.
Wow.
It was a thick belt, like the kind that...
the leather ones?
It's leather, and then it was also embroidered. So super thick. My dad actually broke it on me. I was the last one to use it when I was 16. 15. I was 15 because I was at the neighbor's house and he thought I was with a boy. And he like was spying on me, and he saw me leave across the street, and he came back and beat me so bad with it. He broke it in half. And my brother's like, finally, we're done with that belt. But that belt was used on us since I was probably like 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hers was anything she could grab onto.
Yeah. And my mom, it was mostly the belt, and it was like, if it was my turn to get beat, she would tell my brothers, if you don't find the belt right now, if you don't bring it to me, I'm going to beat you too. So we couldn't protect each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she would scare you guys.
Yeah. If we didn't find the belt and then she found it, she would beat all of us. So when you said you were married the first time to an abusive person, partner.
So, I mean, I watched what I thought was this beautiful, like, love story my whole life of my dad choosing my stepmom.
Right. And
I wanted that.
Yeah, you wanted somebody to choose you.
And so it was after my freshman year of college, which I graduated high school at 17 and immediately went to college and then came back. So I was 18. And I met a guy at church who was a returned missionary who, you know, had this check mark and this check mark and this check mark. And immediately, like, coming home from our marriage and being told, like, well, my body was his. We're married. I own you now.
I hate that so bad because I hear that. I know she hears that.
Yeah. My first husband did the same thing to me. He would sexually abuse me 10 to 15 times a day. There was not a day that I was not allowed to give him oral sex. Like, he had to have oral sex every single day because that was his favorite. and raping me all the time, to the point where I had cuts inside. If you think of having like a fresh cut and then just pouring vinegar on it, how that feels, that's how I felt every single time we had intercourse. There was a lot of times where like it was so painful and I'd be crying. He's like, okay, well then you're just gonna have to turn around because we're gonna do it on the other, like, we're gonna do it the other way, because if it hurts so bad there, then the other hole doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Or you're just gonna orally please me, because if they hurt, then he would call it, just because the Ferris wheel is broken doesn't mean the whole fair or something like that is broken. I can't remember like the exact words, but that's what he would say. Just because the Ferris wheel is broken doesn't mean the whole amusement park is.
Wow.
And because I was his wife.
Yep. Day one. And it's crazy how isn't instantaneous. Like if you've ever experienced it, it is an instantaneous, and how they act in public around other people, and the second that door is closed,
It's a completely different person.
And for me, it was, nobody liked him. Everybody thought I was crazy. Like, how did you marry him? When we were dating, it was different. You know, everybody's like, oh, he's so nice to you. He's so kind. You know, he takes care of you. He was a completely different person when I moved in with him, because we lived in separate towns. He lives an hour and a half away. So I didn't really get to know him in a year and a half. It was only over the phone. And once a week I'd see him. And that's it. Yeah. So the person that I thought like was, I had him up here. He really, like, everybody in town had him down here. He was not a good person. Nobody in town liked him, because they all knew like what a piece of crap he was.
See, mine was the opposite. Everyone loved him. He was well liked in school. He did football. He was the funny guy. But like quickly learned that like I was the brunt of every joke. Like there's not an instance that I wasn't like being put down
Right.
in some way or another. But oh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. But it was constant. Constant. I think the sexual abuse is one of the things that is like the biggest impact, because here I am remarried to an amazing guy. And, you know, we've gone through therapy and stuff like that, because Lord knows I need it. You know, one of the things that my husband, who is perfectly human, has said at times, like, yeah, but it wasn't me. Like, can we please try and do this, because I would enjoy it, you know, and know that like it wasn't me who did this to you. And I'm like, I understand that. Like mentally, I understand that. But putting me in that physical position again, the smells come back, the feelings in my muscle, like my body remembers.
Tenses. Yeah. Your body remembers triggers a lot faster than your mind does. Yeah. And we've learned that a lot as we continue to hear people's stories and stuff like that. Even when Maria got super sick, like her triggers were really high, and I saw it and her brother saw it. She had no idea. Yeah. It's just, it happens so fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
Yeah, it was about the time like when we started doing the podcast, and I came out about experience I went through as a child, and it went public. You know, I went public about it because I was so done with like everybody idolizing this dead person that abused me and others. And I was just so sickened by it. And like once I let all of that out, like I didn't realize like that your body reacts, you know, in a way to tell you like you're healing. Yeah. And it's scary.
And it sucks that like to heal, like you have to
You have to
like
reopen it.
through
you have
it
to
again.
reopen it.
Yeah.
That's something that I've had to learn a lot like this past year. So 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe complex PTSD because for me, it wasn't just the domestic abuse from this horrible man who checkmarked everything that I was supposed to do in life. It's the time I was 3 months old. And I hate that a lot of people with complex PTSD and people that experience such abuse, that they often get diagnosed with like bipolar disorder too. And here's the thing, we weren't allowed to develop personality
Right.
so we cannot get diagnosed with a personality disorder. We don't have one. And I think it's like finally time that I can say like, my brain is not quite normal. Like I'm never going to walk into a social situation, and I have learned to be a chameleon, and I've learned to laugh at the right times, and I've learned to nod at the right times and to have the right amount of eye contact when I need to, because it was beaten into me.
Right.
Not because I learned to heal and fix myself. I learned to survive.
Right.
And it never stopped. And I love my husband to death, but like sometimes I feel bad because he got the raw end of the deal. Like it's never gonna be like, sometimes he'll say like, oh, can we just have a normal relationship? And I know he wants that at times. And I have to say no. Like
what is normal?
What is normal, but like also, I will never be anywhere close to normal at this point.
Yeah. I know you experienced that with your new husband too, right?
Yeah.
Like it took you a while.
It took me a long time. I think the hardest part was just to not flinch over the smallest things. That was the biggest thing. And even sometimes now, I feel like I escalate the arguments, even though they're like very small, but it's just because it's a reaction that I have. And it's like what you said kind of brought something up and my eyes started to tear up, is just that they make you feel so crappy. And they look at you and they degrade you and they make you feel like you're this piece of garbage laying on the floor and only they can, put glitter on it. Like it like brings back all of these emotions, and people don't understand. It's like that quote that you posted, or no, I think that I shared it, about how you can't judge somebody for not leaving if you've never been a part of it, because we never thought that we would be a part of something horrible. And going through it and trying to heal and trying to work on all these triggers, like it is hard work. It is such hard work. And like, I know she gets teary-eyed sometimes. I'm like you, or I freeze a lot. And I'm glad that I have her, and I call her and she's like, you know what? No, like I'm going to be your voice. And she'll go out there and like gladly do it. But then sometimes she'll call me because I'm like the opposite. Like I'm the calm. And so it's like.
So you guys have to
Yeah, we have to like counteract it.
It's funny that you say, because something like happened today, and it's obviously something that I'm like more sensitive to. And I let a friend know that it happened, and she said, do I need to call them up? Like, do I need to handle this for you? Because I know you.
Yeah.
And I know you're not going to do anything, like, so do I. And I'm like, well, I'm being sent. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
Does it need to, like, be taken care of?
Yeah.
I guess, like, my biggest thing is, I think I mentioned this when we were like chatting before. One, I moved so much in my life. I've actually never, as an adult, since the time I turned 18, lived in a home longer than 2 years. So I guess that's where I have flight. I am always on the outside. Like I'm never the person that like gets called up. I'm never the person, like the first person to be invited to things. I'm never the one that's like, hey, this is happening. Like I am always the outside friend. And so turning 18 and finding this guy that met everything that I was supposed to have, like, I was finally getting chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, we lived in Virginia when we met, and we moved to Idaho right afterwards. And that's where, like, things really escalated, because then I was, like, not around anyone.
Yeah.
And just when you already are the personality that is not going to fight anything, and then having no one to turn to. And I mean, he told me, like, there's no point in you continuing school because you're just going to be at home. There's no point in you doing this. There's no point in you doing this. And I own you. That amount of just lack of identity.
Have you ever heard of negging? What that means?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody today about that. And I feel like that's something, like, if you haven't heard about it, like, it's something to talk about on the show, because it's a red flag. And I think you experience that a lot. So what negging is, it's pretty much like a backhanded compliment.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about it on another episode, how my second husband, on the first day that we met, since that day, he was already trying to suppress me. Mm-hmm. He told me a couple weeks after we met if I believed in love at first sight. And I told him, I don't know. I don't think it's ever happened to me. And he said, I do. I saw you walking through those doors, and, like, I felt like everybody else disappeared, and, like, there was a light shining on you, and I just knew that you were going to be my wife. And I went up to a girl. She thought I was a friend then, and I was talking to her, and he came up and asked her to dance. And she said no, she turned him down, so then he turned around and asked me to dance. A couple weeks later, after we were already talking, he said to me, do you know why I asked her to dance first? And I said no. And I'm a confident person. Like, I don't care that you asked my friend to dance first. Like, it didn't make me feel any less of myself. But he said, I just thought you were too good for me, so I wanted to make you feel like you weren't all that.
Mm. The fact that you have to, like, belittle someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wanted to make me feel less of myself by thinking, like, he was more attracted to her first, so that I didn't think I was that great. So I would say yes, that when he came back to ask me to dance. I didn't see it that way.
Right.
But, like, that was his intent the first second he interacted with me. And throughout the 10 years we were married. He always belittled me. He always suppressed me. Anytime, like, I looked good, and he never once told me I was pretty. He never told me I looked good in anything. If I dressed up, in a dress or something, why are you so dressed up? Like, who are you trying to impress? I remember I worked for the bank, and our first Christmas party, I wore a dress. I wanted to look nice. I mean, it's a Christmas party.
Right.
Most of the people there lived out of town, or they're not dressy people, so they didn't dress up. My boss, a very humble, like, normal guy, him and his wife went dressed in jeans, and he goes, look at your boss. He's the boss, and look at his truck. It's a piece of crap, and you drive in here like you're driving the car of the year. Like, you must be so full of yourself. Mm. And I'm, like, thinking, like, why? Like, I'm not saying, like, right. I don't think I'm all that. Like, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I'm not trying to be better than anybody. And then we sit down and, we're going to sit back here, like, where nobody sees us, and my other boss came over and was like, hey, I wanted to meet you. I wanted to tell you thank you and appreciate that you let your wife work with us. She's such a great addition to our team, and we love her. We're so happy for her to be here. And he's just like, why did they try to talk you up like that? Like, just suppressing me the whole time. And then, why did you have to dress all fancy like that? You didn't even fit in. Yeah. And then when it was time to, we were about to leave, and I start getting up to help pick up. Why did you try to show up, like show off by thinking you're better than everybody else by trying to clean up? That's not your job. You're not the maid. You just wanted to get up so everybody can see you. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, one thing after another. Like, when you have the most fucking beautiful girl on that table, instead of being like, wow, babe, I'm so proud of you. I can't believe I'm sitting next to you. Mm-hmm. But it's, no.
Why are you showing up for other people? I hate that because I got told that all the time. And what sucks is that, like, she goes and, you know, you talk about how you moved and how you were separated from everybody. We lived here, like, but when we took her home one time from school and she asked who that little girl was in the back seat, that was the last time I talked to her until we graduated. Mm-hmm. I was not allowed to talk to her because she knew too much. Mm. So I wasn't allowed to talk to her, and I hate that they pick at you until you literally have nobody around you. And then,
right, so leaving, like, for so many people, it's impossible.
It's impossible because he's all that we have, and I hate that.
Mm-hmm. The very last instance, and I don't even remember at this point because, like, I definitely disassociate in my life. I don't even remember what the fight was about. But I remember, and he was a much bigger guy, like, I was somehow, like, pinned against the wall. I'm getting hit. And I managed to just, like, get out of it. And I grabbed my phone and I just ran. And I'm walking, like, it's like midnight in Idaho Falls, and I have no shoes on. I'm in, like, pajama pants and a t-shirt, and it's cold. Like, that's what I remember. It's just, like, feeling cold. It was summer, and I'm in that moment. I have no one. I have not a single person to call. And what's funny is, like, I had just started at a new job, like, a month prior, and I had kind of, like, opened up to, like, my coworker that, like, I kind of want to, like, leave him.
Thank God for coworkers. Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, the IT guy upstairs just went through a divorce. I wonder if he, like, would know what you need to do. Mm-hmm. Which ends up being the person I marry, is this IT guy upstairs.
Wow.
But, like, I called him. Like, I'm here on the, like, on the side of the road, because that's all I had. Like, this person that I talked to for the very first time, like, the week prior, that's...
You confided. Yeah.
That's the one person that I could call.
Yeah.
And, yeah, the next 2 weeks. So if you don't have any kids and you're not going to fight them and you just went out of a situation, like, in Idaho, it only takes a few weeks. And he told me, like, I said, we're done. And he's like, well, you better get this paperwork done before I leave. And so it was like 2 days to rush to get, figure out where things went and documents and what we're going to split and things notarized. And I had 2 days because he was going home to Virginia.
Mm-hmm. It's 21 days from the day you file. You have to wait 21 days if there's no contest.
Yeah, if you don't contest anything.
Yeah.
So it's like
unless
like 3
your
weeks.
ex-husband is out of the country and they're trying to find him, and then you have to go through the newspaper and all of that cool stuff. But
yeah, I was lucky that he, like, signed it. But I even remember, like, before he left and we're, like, leaving the place to get notarized, and we were in the same car. I don't know why I put myself back in that situation to, like, be in the same car as him. And he, like, reaches over and, like, grabs and starts, like, groping me. And he's like, well, I still own this right now. And so I don't know when's the next time I'm going to be able to touch someone like that again. So I'm going to do it while I can. Like to the very last second. He's like, Mom's getting worked up.
I know. He's like, excuse me.
How long were you with him?
We were married for 4 years.
Wow. And what would you say, like, in the beginning, what do you think, did you see any red flags? Or what were the first red flags?
Looking back, it was that I was the brunt of every joke. Like, oh yeah, he's a funny guy, but that shouldn't be at the expense of someone else every single time.
Right.
And I think for me now in my life, and this might be controversial, but religion should not be an excuse to be a certain type of person.
Correct. I agree.
Like, besides any religion, you should want to be a good person. And in his case, everything came back in some way or another to that religion. That he was the patriarch, that he was the head of the household, that he had this, that he then had a divine right to everything. And now I probably have definitely some trauma issues when it comes to any kind of religion, that I'm like, if you can't be a good person outside of a religion, then you're not a good person.
You're not a good person. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. Was there a reason you guys didn't have kids?
He couldn't
have kids.
So on top of like the sexual abuse, he had an addiction himself, like an extreme masturbation addiction. And so his testosterone levels were actually incredibly low. And I think that honestly like added fuel to some of like his anger, because then he had to like prove himself.
So I didn't know that caused low testosterone.
When it's that
my ex-husband was, I mean, even though he was having sex with me so many times a day, he was still masturbating. I remember the first week, it was, I moved in with him like on a Wednesday, and on Saturday we had his brother's graduation, and, you know, during the night, in the morning, midday, and when I thought it was like, okay, this might be a little too much, like, I didn't know any different. I hadn't been married before. I hadn't been with other people before. Like, it was brand new. I didn't know it wasn't normal. It wasn't a topic we talked about in my house. We weren't even allowed to say the word sex.
Yeah.
So for me to experience this, I remember like we had sex before I went to go get in the shower. I went to go get in the shower and I come back upstairs to get my clothes and we had sex again. I go back downstairs to get ready in the big mirror in the bathroom, and I come back upstairs because I forgot my makeup, and he was under the sheets masturbating already. And I was like, I walked in and he's just like, oh. And I'm like, what happened? And he's just like, oh, nothing. And I'm like, you're suspicious. So I like pulled the covers and he's watching porn. And I'm like, dude, we had sex 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So then we have sex again. And I mean, obviously, like, it was kind of it's the honeymoon stage, you know? I even had a conversation with his mom about it. And she's just like, it's just because it's the honeymoon stage, you know? Like, it will eventually, like, be less and less. It wasn't.
Yeah.
We lived together for a whole year, and it was never less. It didn't stop. It got worse and worse. Because at first, yeah, I was like, I was raised like, you have to be married. Like, this is out of wedlock, you know. And I moved in with him without being married. So I felt like not only was I probably not attracted to him as much, but also my desire wasn't there 2, and I felt like it was wrong. Like I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Like God was going to punish me.
Yeah.
So then when, I found out he's cheating on me, and then we have the conversation of, you have to be married to me or else I'm like, that's why I'm cheating on you. And then I married him. Then after we were married, I'm like, it's supposed to feel right. It's supposed to be okay. I'm married now.
Right.
But it still didn't.
Well, I think that's something that's a whole like topic in itself, is how oftentimes I think as women we're like taught that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like you don't, and now all of a sudden
you have to.
You have to. Mm-hmm. And there is no like teaching like maturity when it's okay, and girls understanding the biology of their own bodies to, 1, enjoy sex, or 2, understand what is happening.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually funny about that. I remember right before I married him, his mom gave me a book written by an LDS author. So it was like designed to also like have that religious conversation. But it was teaching about what happens biologically to a girl when it's sex. And I'm reading this, and I went and told my stepmom, I'm like, did you know this? Like, because we never had any kind of like sex talk. And my siblings and I were molested as kids. And she's like, well, I mean, I just assumed you knew because you'd gone through stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, what a 6-year-old kid experiences.
Yeah. It's not the same.
It's not the same. So
I think also for me I was also molested a few times as a child. And when my mom found out about it, it was a big no. Like, you never talk about that. You don't do that. I still have issues now as an adult about that. Like, I want to say that maybe my mom caught me, like, touching myself. And it was like she beat me because it was not okay. Because my abuser told me that that's what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And I was not allowed to do that. And so I have that trauma still that I think it's disgusting that I don't allow myself to do that because it's gross and because it's not allowed. It's a shame. Like, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm still that little girl back then that's not allowed. And so, yeah, but I that's crazy. Like, I had no idea that having that much, like, masturbating and having sex that many times like that could cause you to have low testosterone.
I mean, you think about it, it has to, like, refill.
Yeah.
So, like, the sperm count and not, like, it has to refill. So
I thought, I don't know. I guess
you didn't
in my
have
mind,
enough swimmers in it.
So, I mean, that,
and the low testosterone.
yeah, that would make sense maybe why I never got pregnant. I was on birth control the whole time we were together. But there was many times where that birth control failed, like condoms. The pill, like, they took me off of, I was on the shot for like a year. That was horrible. I also was on pills that sometimes I would miss. And then when they took me off the pills and condoms broke, like, he thought I was pregnant. That's, that's a whole nother story we can talk about that we've talked about in the other shows. But I mean, I never thought about that. That could be why he couldn't have kids.
We were married for 4 years, and the divorce was finalized in June. I did, because wanting to find someone, I did jump into a relationship thank God it worked out. But we ended up getting pregnant like August. So like immediately was able to like get pregnant. We were married in September, and we're going on. Oh man, I might get in trouble if I say the amount wrong. 11 or 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm not the one in our relationship that remembers dates. But yeah, I think I definitely lucked out that the person who picked me up on the side of the road ended up being the right person. And that doesn't mean that like he's without his faults or that our relationship hasn't struggled.
But it's perfect, yeah.
Because there's so much. And you feel like you like unpeel this layer just to like uncover. And going to like therapy, like, yes, we're going to work through this. And it almost like makes it worse for a time period because it's bringing all of these things up. And I think the biggest thing has been just this sense of a huge identity crisis. I know what I'm good at. I know what I enjoy doing, but like, who am I?
Right.
And that's something that I don't know if I've even now figured out.
Yeah.
I think I've, like, I dealt with that for a long time. Obviously now being alone for as long as I have, you know, several times, that I have figured out who I am now, especially the last like 6 months. I've learned a lot. And I do love myself. Like my boundaries are like up here.
Teach me the ways.
Like, like it takes men, it's gonna take so many like I don't know.
A patient man.
Or just it's never gonna happen. But I'm really glad. Seriously, I'm so glad that you found somebody. That it didn't like that you didn't repeat the cycle, because I did. And I've done it again, you know? Like because just from going from one to another and not seeing those red flags. And I think that's why it's so hard for me now to go back to, because I think I learned my lesson. I see them once they're coming, like they're like coming at me, and I'm like, nope.
You're like, I'm a pro at red flags at this point.
Yes, I am.
You even give off an orangish vibe, and we're steering clear.
Yes.
I think for me in my life, I've had to get really good at reading rooms and reading people.
Do you feel like you get screwed over by people like in your life, like friends
constantly.
or just acquaintances? Yeah.
I think especially as being a small business owner, like too, like there's multiple things that come in hand with that. But like, if I do this for them, then we're going to be friends. Like I'm going to have a friend now. Like, if I do this, like, you know, that will be reciprocated. And actually, I think it's 2 years now. Like I had someone that I thought was such a good friend. And like the one time that I was like asking for something, like it was a complete no-show. And I was so distraught. And my husband was like, let's honestly think about all the things that you have done. And at what point have they once shown up for you? He's like, that's not friendship. And it's taken him to like kind of point out that like you can't give because that's not gonna like buy a friendship. But I don't know how. I don't know how to human. Like I well, I fake it really well sometimes.
I want to say, like, you think you're not like as normal as you are, but you really are. Like I consider you, even though we don't hang out and we're not like close, I consider you as one of my circle.
Yeah.
I really do. Because even though it's like a far, you know, relationship, I feel like we're so much alike. Even not knowing your story before, I feel like I relate to you a lot. Especially in our our trauma of being hyper independent because you
To a
are
fault.
you are like so much like me. Seriously, there's so many things that you do, and I'm like, people tell me I'm crazy, but she does it too. So
Don't use me as an example.
I'm like, it's not that bad. There's
Should
other
not be
people
your
out
sanity.
there. No, but I like that. I think we need to hang out more.
Yeah.
Honestly, because
Agree.
I used to feel like that. Like I wasn't the friend also that, people came to me. But Angelica's always like, today I texted her, I was like, I haven't heard from you
I know.
all day. Like, it's crazy when we don't
I know.
see each other
And, like,
and
yesterday,
stuff.
I was like, I have not seen you in a long time. And she was like, I know, I saw you for like a minute on Saturday. And that was the last time I saw you. I was like, oh my gosh.
It's been that long. But no, I mean, I have in the last
Just
few
gonna
years.
drop everything. Sorry.
In the last few years, I feel like I've found my circle. Like I kind of know how to pick, because my picker was broken for a long time for friends too. Like I would be so kind and loving and giving and just everything, and then they'd always just use me,
Yep.
and I was always hurtful. Like, yeah, but.
I'm so nervous as someone who like also owns a small business to ever have someone feel like I'm taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm always like, all right, well, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. Like, I'm like,
Yeah. You're like tiptoeing.
I feel like I spend my whole life walking on eggshells.
Yeah,
No
we
one
can
should.
just add you into our circle.
Yeah.
We randomly will text each other, be like, are you hungry?
Yeah.
wanna
We
go?
have lots of dinner dates.
We're like, yeah, we do. And then, or if like she's having a bad day or I'm having a bad day, she'd be like, let's go.
Yeah.
And we'll just go eat and get ice cream. Whatever. We'll take off to Utah. Like,
Yeah.
It's hard because like I have 5 kids, my oldest being my bonus son that we have on the weekends, but the 4 that I have full time, like I homeschool them.
Yeah.
Like a crazy person. Like
awesome.
That
I'm
might
so
set you into a different, like.
but I'm so scared. Like I'm not a helicopter parent. Like if you see me around my
Right,
kids,
yeah.
like in no
Yeah.
ways do I give off helicopter parent vibes.
Right.
But I'm also so terrified for them to experience even an ounce of what I went through.
Same.
Right.
And even like I just got back from Virginia, and my oldest that I biologically had is 10, and she's like, why didn't grandma like want to be with us or like spend as much time as she was with my cousin, and it was in that moment that I was like, no, I'm done. So like they're calling and they're texting, and I not once have answered them. And I know that they went to my like sister and was like, what did we do? And she's like, that is not for me to like tell. If Mia wants to tell you, she will. But you also know Mia, and you've been cut off. Like she reached that limit that
Yeah. With no return.
she will. And I am not even the person that's going to tell you why I cut you off. Like I
Yeah.
am just done.
I think I used to be that person. Like I wanted to get not validation, but like I wanted to get an apology. Even though I wanted to cut someone off, I wanted to get an apology, so I'd always let them know, but now I'm like, you're done. I don't need to, even a conversation I had this weekend of I wasn't happy with something, and I got asked, can you please what changed? And I said, I just don't want to be part of this, that I didn't appreciate. And I got asked, can you please like explain? And I feel like it's hard for me to explain, where I'm coming from. I feel like I'm going to be told I'm crazy, and I'm afraid of that. And so then I'm like, you know what? I don't need to explain. Like, I'm just done, and that's it. Like, that's it. I don't need to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I think growing up so much, like hearing, like, be careful because you're going to turn into your biological mom. Like, I'm so probably sensitive would maybe be the word of like confronting someone and then like terrified that someone's going to say, well, like, oh, you're crazy, or like, oh, it was really on me. Like, it terrifies me.
Yeah. No, I absolutely know what you're talking about. My ex-husband, my kids' dad, he would always say, you're going to be just like your mom. Like, every time I discipline my kids, you're going to be just like your mom. And you're so mean. You say you hate your mom so much, or you couldn't stand your mom, but you're just like her. And to hear that over and over and over, for 2 years, I thought I was a bad mom. Until I get told, by peers, you're not a bad mom. Counseling, like, and then my kids themselves tell me I'm not a bad mom. Yeah. To hear that, it's so refreshing. And I just have to tell myself. Yeah. But I am so glad that you are here and that you're able to share your story. And hopefully it helps somebody else, or help them share their story. We're always welcoming new people. I hope we bring you back one day so you can tell us when this comes out, in a few weeks. I want to see what reaction you have after hearing yourself.
Yeah.
Ooh. Do I have to watch it?
I think, was it Mindy said she can't watch herself? So I haven't actually asked her if she's watched it or not, but I've heard it from all the other ones, that have watched it, like, wow. And for me, I know for me, like, after hearing myself, and I was like, wow, like, I went through that. It was that bad. Like, because I'd always say, like, it's not that, like, what I went through wasn't that bad. There's others that were worse, And now when I hear it, I'm like, that's me. I'm the one that went through that. Like, that's horrible.
I always have felt like what I went through with my ex wasn't that. Like, there's so many other women who've experienced
10 times worse.
10 times worse.
But it doesn't minimize what you went through, right?
But I'm realizing, how much it has affected
the rest of your life.
A healthy relationship, for one.
Yeah.
And just, like, solidified the little bit of self-worth.
Right.
I think that's why I'm honestly, like, when I started my business, was so passionate about working with women in such a way, because I'm like, if I can't have self-worth, you need to. Like,
and you do such a good job at it,
really
too.
good job at it.
I've had, and not talking bad about any other photographer, I think I've worked with a lot of photographers that were great, but, like, the way you do things, like, you're so specific the way I like, you're like, move this, move that, and everybody is just like, oh, well, just pose, or, or do this or that, but,
what
like,
side do
they're
you
not
like?
I like that you're like, okay,
put your hand here.
Yeah.
This way.
I always ask. Can I touch? Can I,
like... You did so good at capturing every single one of us. Like, you could just tell, like, in the preview pictures, like, everybody was just lit up in a different way. You did so good.
I, like, loaded them, and I was like,
wait to see them, and I'm like, this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Well, we love you, and we would love to have you on here more. And like I said, we're just gonna start adding you to our dates, and they're usually at nighttime. So I have 5 kids too, and so night times is great.
Yeah, like after 8 when bedtime. Yep. Yeah.
We go out for cake a lot.
Yeah, we do.
0 complaints on desserts.
Perkins is our spot.
I have a extremely high cortisol level, which comes with PTSD. So any amount of sugar,
yes,
I'm all there.
Makes sense.
But thank you for being a part of this with us.
Yes, and this was episode 10. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
It Begins With Us is supporting podcasts for 1614 Revival Foundation.
Please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever possible. That really helps the show reach more people.
You can follow us on social media. The links are in the show notes. Do not hesitate to reach out. See you next time.